All right. So I'm about to do this Steve Jobs review. Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. No, this is awkward because I'm driving. I'm driving home from work. But this is the only way I have to do it. The book is too damn long. First of all, I give it a 10 out of 10 because the way that it is written objectively. You're seeing Steve Jobs like, you know, rather than like how Arnold Schwarzenegger was, where he's telling the first person. This book is written by Walter Isaacson, and he's unapologetically honest. He notices everything. He doesn't just take your word for it. He asks maybe 3 or 4 people that you know, and 3 or 4 people that they know about what happened, about that situation that that he may have said. So it took me about a year to get through the whole book. It's not that the book was boring or anything. It was just that it was so long. I would get quarter into I read a chapter in a quarter, and then I put it down. I read something else, and then I read this, and then I read something else, and because it was an actual ebook, I had to spend time to read it. So it took me about a year to fully finish the book. So I can't really tell you everything that happened. I know I can tell you everything that happened in the book, but it would be too long of a review. So I'm going to just tell you about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is actually son of a Syrian man, right? He was adopted by some family that took him in and raised him from a boy all the way on up. And he came up in Northern California, and he came around the same time as Bill Gates and the guy that created the Dell computer, and they used to be really into the big magazines and all of that stuff back when tech was starting to boom. Late 70s, early 80s, or mid 70s, or whenever Jobs came up. And Jobs, he wasn't a really, long story short, he was a very, very awkward, strange kind of guy. He was the type of guy that would go to different countries and no money, and would just sleep amongst the common people and walk amongst the common people. He was very, very weird. He was like one of the first people that was really into organic, raw eating, and he didn't believe in wearing deodorant at one point. And he was just weird. He believed that the mind could control everything. The mind could control the way you smell, the way you think. I mean, he had this burning stare that I saw Ashton Kutcher try to do, but just butchered it. It was just terrible. No movie could do it justice. Even this new movie that's coming out, without seeing the movie, after reading the book, I know it's going to be just bad, because the guy is way too handsome to be Steve Jobs. Way too handsome. Steve Jobs actually looks like Ashton Kutcher, but Ashton Kutcher just couldn't nail it. And Ashton Kutcher was a pretty good actor in Butterfly Effect, but I digress. All right, so Steve Jobs is strange. I mean, like I said, he doesn't have the technical skills as far as like building a computer and all that stuff. He's cognizant of the tech, the jargon, what they say, the type of words that they use, and he knows. He's a smart, intelligent man, but he's more of the guy that's looking at the aesthetics, how it's going to be presented. He'll give you the idea. He'll give you the idea. He'll expect a prototype, and he has the vision to make it happen. Okay, Now Wozniak, that was his friend, this little, you know, chubby friend. You should go follow him on Twitter. This was a guy who created Apple. But Steve Jobs had the gift of gab. He was a guy that had that swag. He had that way of talking, and you know, when lights, camera, action came on, this guy was a guy that was like, he handled his business. He knew how to talk. He knew how to sell. All right. And Steve Jobs, you know, when he first got with Apple and everything, he had this commercial that was, you could actually check it out on YouTube, where it was like in this Orwellian kind of theme, where it was like Big Brother's taking over, and you need to get with Apple, and Apple's going to be the future. But yeah, I'll get to that later. Why I talked about that commercial. But he's like, basically, you know, you need to get with Apple because Apple is the future. We're the type, we're breaking away, we're breaking free from Big Brother. So Steve Jobs had a lot of skeletons, and he drove a lot of people against him. His attitude, his arrogance, his way of demeaning people and putting people down. I really admire Steve Jobs, but he's a person, even if he was still living, I really wouldn't want to meet, because seeing the type of person he was, I wouldn't want to be rejected. You know, like try to come up to him and shake his hand and get rejected or whatnot. You see a lot of guys trying to fake that, you know, fake it like, after that Steve Jobs book came out, you see a lot of guys trying to fake it like they're Steve Jobs. I see Kanye West try to do shit like Steve Jobs, like, you know, they had some where the camera focused on him and he kind of gave this dirty stare, like, don't look at me, don't stare at me, I'm Kanye West, you know, like, I heard him say some pretentious shit like, oh yeah, I got the actual keyboard Steve Jobs had, blah blah blah. I digress. But Steve Jobs was the original, real deal, original guy that was just impetuous. He acted sometimes without truly thinking. He cried when he had a big decision to make. He would cry. He would take these long walks, and he would just deliberate heavily over what he should do, and he would act all rigid sometimes, and then he'd acquiesce and give in, and then he'd go back rigid again, and you know, he was just a strange type of character, but he had vision. All right, and when the lights came on, when he had to do these shows, he knew what to do. Now, he did create this thing called the Next computer. It was a great computer, way ahead of its time. But the thing was, it was so ahead of its time, people didn't understand it, and it flopped. It was too ahead of its time, right? So that flopped. He talks about how he formed that company that worked with Disney. Got with that company that worked with Toy Story. You know, Steve Jobs pretty much hooked up with some other guys, and they formed was not DreamWorks, but whatever company that is that he owns a company that basically did Toy Story. And he talks about, you know, how Toy Story was so successful, and it catapulted that company into doing actually more movies, like I think Ants and just a lot of different movies where he had a successful company. You know, that company is very successful because of Steve Jobs and a couple partners he got. And he had the power of persuasion. He knew how to get people on his side. Right? So he knew how to, you know, seduce people. And he knew how to manipulate people and stuff like that, but he was very smart. You know, he had a child that he really wasn't kind of being close to, and kind of abandoned her and didn't really treat her right. He tried to get things right with his daughter, as towards the end of his life. But I mean, this is a book that shows you a flawed man. It's really showing you a flawed man. Now, it's not like when you read the book, you think you're going to read about a mastermind, a guy that was, he would tell you, you know what? Like in current time, he'll do some shit like, you know what? I want you to create a hoverboard that goes 60 miles per hour and only fuel it needs is a gallon of water. I want you to make that shit tomorrow. And people will be like, huh? What are you talking about? You're like, I need you to make that shit. You make that shit or you fired. Storm out the room. Dead ass serious. Like, you better have that shit done. And they will come with a prototype. Shit be all fucked up and stupid looking. And excuse me for cursing. Just got off work. So basically, they'll bring him a prototype. He'll look at it, tell him, the aesthetics is wrong. I want it done like this. I want it done like that. Get the patents down. And this intelligent man. So he had that vision. He was the one who created music, as we know. He's the one that created tablets, as we know. He was the one that created the tablet. He created the iPad. That stuff to Samsung and Google and the phone, all that. He never liked the Android because he felt like the Android was biting his shit. And I mean, biting his swag. He never liked that. He was the one that put the patent on all that. That's why Samsung and Apple always go at it in court, because he just never liked the fact that he was trying to take what they did and Steve Jobs believed that customers are fair weather, which is true. We switch like the weather. We change like the weather. We change like colors. We don't, one day we want this, next day we want that. I mean, just look at politics, look at the news. And Steve Jobs knew that customers are unreliable. So his thing was exclusivity, which means that he creates something and convince you, but he would go, I mean, he was heavily into aesthetics. He would, we're talking about a guy that went to Reed College just in his free time and would study calligraphy, all types of calligraphy. How letters look, how colors look, how the colors look on the box, how everything, what type of feeling that you get when you get the box. He would go over the box. He would go over the commercial. He would argue with some of the top commercial makers, the people that were the best in the business as far as making commercials. He would argue with them. Oh no, this looks too pretentious. Oh no, this looks too, they think this is ugly. This is effing stupid. This is ugly. He would argue with people. He would berate people. Disrespect them, embarrass people, lambaste them in public, everything. And Steve Jobs had a bad reputation. He got kicked out of Apple again. And the guy, Steve Jobs, was just, no matter what, they started suffering. Apple started suffering, and they had to bring Steve Jobs back because he had the vision. And then, he created everything. He created, everything as we know it. He had the vision. It was ridiculous, the stuff that he was saying, but it was ridiculous, the stuff that he was saying back then. But as you read the book, you're like, well, yeah, that's a tablet, or yeah, that's an MP3 player, But that, he was getting everything down. He was trying to get artists, Bono and U2, and this guy was smart. He really, really was on top of his game. But as you read the book, you already know how it's going to end. And unfortunately, it's kind of like Fruitvale Station. You know how it's going to end, but you don't want it to end the way you think. You kind of push it for Steve Jobs. Just But the way that it ends, it's sad. But I mentioned that Apple. I mentioned that Orwell commercial was because it was a lot of irony in that. When Steve Jobs first broke in on the scene, he had the Orwell video talking about how Big Brother is trying to take over, and Apple actually became Big Brother because they have their belief is exclusivity. Everything with them is exclusive. Even the stuff today with Apple Music, even everything with the Apple phone, everything with is exclusive. You have to either be Apple or you're Android. It's not no in between. All right. So it's crazy that Android is actually inclusive, which means they want to share it with the world. They want to put it in your hands. I happen to be an Android guy, as you can tell. But Androids, they're trying to, they basically took what Steve Jobs did and said, no, give it to the people. Let the people make their own decisions. That's why the ubiquity of Google, their whole thing is give the people the search engines, everything. Give the people what they want. Let them take over. Let them do their thing. But I just found that real ironic. That's like one of the biggest takeaways I got for the book. But Steve Jobs was the one that was trying to put newspapers on, the newspaper subscriptions on tablets, and he was the one that was he was a guy that was talking about putting ebooks on tablets and stuff. He was like, man, books are too clunky. We need to have an iPad where you can read books. And man, Steve Jobs, man, he was a visionary. He may have been the type of person that you would be repulsed by, and a lot of people, he just didn't have that personality where you would get along with him. But he was an excellent visionary, and he stole a lot of ideas. He stole a lot of ideas from his workers, and he would get in front of some of the biggest people and be like, yeah, thank you, right in front of the person, like, yeah, take just like how he did with Woz. But he was a complicated man, but he had vision. And it talks about why he didn't like him and Bill Gates didn't really get along, because Bill Gates is a type of guy, according to Jobs, that wants to create the Honda Civic of computers. Basically, his thing is, as long as you get those sales off and you hitting those quarters properly, you hitting that quota, and you making that money the way you're supposed to be making that money. What difference does it make if it's how it looks and all that, long as it gets the job done? This thing was like ubiquity, right? And Steve Jobs was like, no, I don't care about ubiquity. I want my car to be, if he was pushing a car, he would be pushing a Tesla. He would be pushing something that's moving towards the future, something that's luxurious, something that looks nice, makes people feel better. So that's kind of why he knew a lot about tech, as far as like, okay, what kind of stuff he wanted how his computer, the type of power, the type of presentation. He really cared about that stuff. He really cared about the aesthetics and how people feel about using this product. He wasn't trying to just push a product like, well, I'm just making money. He was into making money, but he was more passionate about, very, very much more passionate about the aesthetics and how people feel about using this product. How do they feel? And that's why, Apple's kicking ass, or was. I don't really follow stocks, but that's why Apple was kicking ass when they had Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs was incredible. So it's pros and cons to exclusivity, but he was a man. It's still to the day, we still use things that he talks about Joni Eve, he talks about everybody. But You know, towards the end, it's sad the way that he mentally thinks about, I mean, the way he feels like he could control things with his mind actually goes against him when he finds out he has cancer, and he actually thinks, okay, you know, I could kind of fight this. I could kind of beat this with my mind. I can overcome this, but he couldn't. The cancer was just too strong, and when he developed the cancer, and the cancer spread throughout his body, it started taking organs away and stuff like that. He tried chemo, but he was already a couple stages in where it was too late. You know, right now, modern medicine, we haven't really found a cure yet, but he was at the end of his road, and it just, you know, how the book ended, I was in tears damn near. But it's a great book. Is, you know, like I said, this guy's impetuous, he's emotional, he's passionate, he's not a good friend, he is a good friend, he's everything. He's just a conflicted man, and you would have to go get the book, read the book at whatever pace you feel at your discretion, and you have to see for yourself. But I don't think it's any movie that's going to do Steve Jobs justice. Great book, recommend you get it. Another book review by Eddie Starr. Like, comment, subscribe. I mean, what do you think? If you read the book already, tell me what you think. But I'm telling you, in my opinion, it's a 10 out of 10. All right, peace.